So I think this is a big one, and I'm guilty probably as the best of all. How to realistically execute ideas you get from books, seminars, and other things. So what are some of your guys' tips and tricks to executing ideas that you get from, different platforms? Because, let's be honest, you go to a seminar and let's say that seminar is 2 hours long or 4 hours long, whatever. And you jot all these notes down, and Valerie just learned how to use her iPad. So she's putting it on her iPad now. And, but how do you take it from, the notepad to implementation? What are some of the things you guys do to make that effective? Because Brad needs a lot of help. Brad is either a 30-day window or a 12-month window. He struggles with that 31 the rest of the year. So
I wrote the book instead of the book 12-week year. I wrote the book 4-week year. So
hey, I listened to an interesting podcast that was all about like objection handlers, and it was such a good one. I bookmarked that one, and I think I listened to that same podcast like 4 times. It was so good. And then I just kind of like, if I put it on in the car or whatever, it's like 2 birds with 1 stone. I always try to listen to them when I'm doing something else. I feel like repetition, you gotta repeat those things to yourself over and over again.
Right. I agree. But so objection handling, I like that, because I struggle with that as well. So you could share that podcast with me.
Yeah.
I would love to hear it. But like, let's say you're at a, I'm going to use a open house, right? I know Valerie earlier this year put together kind of an open house plan, but she probably had all of these ideas in her head. How did you get them from this vision to execution without feeling overwhelmed?
It's always a work in progress, but I think, putting things on, plotting it out, putting it on the calendar. So like, for me at the beginning of the year, kind of looking ahead at, okay, for open houses, what am I doing each month? What does that look like? And then how do I plan for an open house each week? What am I doing? When do I start planning for that? But in terms of like implementing new ideas, I think that it's impossible to take everything we learn and put it into practice. I think you have to really just cherry pick the nuggets that really make sense. I think there's just, even if you go to a class or whatever and you get 1 or 2 nuggets out of it, that was worthwhile. And if you can put those into practice or somehow riff on those, even if it's not doing it exactly that way, but if it inspires you to look at something with a new lens of how to approach, a certain, lead generation or organizing, or prospect, or whatever it is, if it can at least inspire you to look at it in a different way, I guess that's how I kind of approach it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm the same way. So like I'll use both you guys as a good example. Sarah, I do the same thing. So during the book, the 12-week year, as I'm listening to it, I'm bookmarking parts in the chapters that I really wanted to go back and listen to. And then I will kind of take notes from it the second time through versus trying to note take the first time through. Because then I feel like when I note take the first time through, when I'm reading something or kind of learning about something, I miss more than I'm paying attention to, right? Trying to do 2 things at once. And then to Valerie's point, I take those like key nuggets, and I'll pick like 2 or 3 things that I feel are going to add the most value, and I try to implement those first. And then I'll go back and be like, okay, this isn't quite working. What did they do a little bit different? So I really feel it's really hard to take everything at once and implement it. So I do the same thing. I break it down into kind of a calendar workflow on when I want to execute something by, and then, making sure it's kind of that flow chart so that I get to the end means by a certain time. And my biggest problem is I procrastinate at times. Like I'll see that flow chart and I'll give myself 2 days to do it and then not do it until the end of the second day, just because I like to stay on task. So that's kind of how I work those types of situations. But I still feel it's a struggle for myself.
See, I feel like I like to take those things and try to do them very first thing in the morning before I get sidetracked with other things.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I get up at 4 a.m. and those are like the small projects I try to knock out first thing in the morning or early. And then it just depends on what it's demanding of my time. Like if it's me recording a video, I'm not going to record my video at 4 a.m. because my kids are still sleeping, right? But if it's small follow-up, then I'll try to knock that out. Or if it's a project I'm working on, I'll try to knock that out early. So yeah. So Brad, what do you do for project management and implementing new things? Because
I'm sorry, I'm not contributing to this section. No.
Sorry, I had to plug my computer in.
The biggest challenge is if I don't get my task stuff done in the morning, it doesn't get done. Because by the afternoon, you got the phone calls start coming in, the emails are really coming in, client requests, lender requests, title company requests. I mean, all the stuff, the showing requests, all the stuff cards coming at you. If that's my biggest challenge, because if I don't get it done in the morning or something distracts me earlier, it's gone for the day. Unless I choose to, which I am productive and I'll do it occasionally. Try not to do it too bad because, try to at least hang out with the wife or wife and kid, even though she's adult. A little bit each evening, if once or twice a week I say to my wife, hey, I'm just going to, at 8 o'clock, and I'm going to go upstairs and knock a couple things out for a few hours, fine. If I start doing that, several times a week, it's kind of like, really, you've been up since 4. That's really it. I mean, to me, that's the secret sauce. The only thing else I'll comment on is somebody said, like, when you go to like seminars and stuff like that, I never even try to take more than 3 things away. I only take notes on those 3 things, and I take minimal notes. I try to listen more. Because most of those places you can get the presentation deck or whatever after or before, so you can remember things. I try to just really listen, because if I'm trying to take like really detailed notes, I miss everything. It doesn't stick. I'll get more if I just listen, take a couple of really key bullet pointed notes, and that's it. Otherwise, and I got that tip from one of my coaching mentors. I watched him in a seminar for 2 days. Didn't have a notepad with him. All I have is a cell phone with him for 2 days. And every once in a while I'd see him. That's why I asked him. He's like, I look for 3 things I want to take away, and I take minimal notes, and I just listen to the rest. I'm like, it's a pretty good tip.
But what happens when you're in that seminar and you're just blown away by your speaker or whoever it is? How do you know where those 3 things are? Like at what point? I mean, if you take your first 3 things right away, then you're like, oh shit, but that was really good too. Now you're right. What's that?
It's a great question. I asked that question originally, and what he told me is there is an agenda on a lot of seminars of the different topics. Go into it with what you think the 1, 2, or 3 that are most important to your business right away. So you can get thrown off. Another topic is really super good. I've had that happen. You kind of change courses a little bit, but he's like, like usually those 3 that you're most interested in, that's the ones you're going to focus on. Something else comes out of the blue and blows you out of the water. Well, it's called adjust.
No, good point. Does anybody else want to add into what they, how they execute ideas from books or seminars, or even like Zoom calls like this?
I think I share what Sarah said too. Like for me, it takes a lot of repetition. I have to hear it multiple times. That's why like the Tom Ferry process works so well for me, because a lot of the concepts are repeated over and over. It's like this, I hear it from Brad, I hear it from the podcast, I hear it in the online training, a lot of the same kind of things. And so just hearing them again and again really instills it in me. But I'm the kind of person who I either hyper focus on something or I'm totally scattered. And so I really do struggle with, if there's something I'm totally fixated on, I could spend the entire day doing it. And all of a sudden my husband's like, you gonna make dinner? Like, like, oh crap, I didn't do anything else today. So I do struggle with that.
Sarah, you're about to say something?
Oh, I don't even remember what it was. Wasn't important.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's not trying to perfect it. I think, once I find something that I want to implement, it's just starting the process. And I know some of you on this call are perfectionists, and it's got to be perfect before you roll it out or implement it. But I think just getting it started allows me to stay on top of it and stay committed to it. If I don't start it and I try to perfect it, I then get stuck trying to get to that next step. So for me, it's, I get the base down. I'm like, all right, we're going to do this. And then we just kind of go with it and evolve it as we go along. And a lot of times I find that sometimes what was shown to me or explained to me or told to me during a book presentation or whatever isn't the best way. I find something that works a little bit different in my business or my lifestyle that is going to be more effective. So I think for me, it's implementing it and running with it right from the start. So.
Yeah, I feel like finding those few key things that really work and focusing on those few key things. Like for me, I think my the events that I do, like my riding club, and I volunteer for a lot of that, kids sports. I tried to really see the opportunities that are there. And there are things that I really just enjoy doing. So it's such a win-win because I feel like it brings something positive that I enjoy to my life, and also, gets you out there in front of people doing fun things. And so that's something that I really focus, because if you go to an event with 40 people, like you've just made, 40 touches and they came to you. You didn't have to reach out to each one of them individually. And it's a huge time saver.
Right. Quick question for you, Sarah. So you talk about like your writing group. Do you have a Facebook group? Something like, and this was brought up to me on something I was on last week, like a Facebook group for realtors that like to ride horses, or do you have your own Facebook group that you started for like the horse?
I don't, but it was funny. I was actually thinking that would be a fabulous group, because I remember when I was searching for property here, I was looking for like equestrian realtors, and like even in other places, and it's actually kind of on my mind as something I would like to look into doing, because I have so many connections in that world, and people do I have friends. In fact, I have a friend who is a realtor and she's an equestrian. She used to live here. She lives in Texas now. But but we touch bases back and forth. She's referred me several clients. I have sent her random stuff that I've found in Facebook groups. So yeah, I think that's an awesome idea, and it is something that I think would be a great resource.
Yeah. And I thought of you because I would do it from a golfer standpoint, because Brad and I both love golfing, like realtors that love to golf, right? So for you, horses, I mean, any way you can like grow your network, even from a referral set standpoint or, a client base, could be beneficial.
Well, and if you have people who are really into golfing, and you are familiar with that, you know the neighborhoods that are by good golf courses. And it's important for me and the horses. I know the houses that have great trail access or beach access or are close to the arenas, or, have boarding stables nearby, or which stables have indoor arenas and which ones do lessons, and, all that. The average person does not know that.
Right. So you'll have a Facebook group created by next week.
Sure.
That sounded like an action item.
It did.
Yeah.
All right. I'll have a realtor golf group created by next week if you have a horse one.
Okay, it's a deal. I'm going to check in on Monday. Ooh,
yes.
No pressure.
I'm going to add it to, hold on. I'm going to add it to my Asana task list real quick.
Okay.
Where did Asana go?
By the way, anybody use Asana on this group?
I don't
No, I've heard of it and I've seen it, but it looked hard.
I had another suggestion, somebody do a friends and family of whoever your, brokerage is, and it can be past clients or people who are, tradespeople, that kind of things, for just tips, or do you need a well fixed, or this, or a sheetrock guy, or that, I did create one of those groups. I have been really bad about adding people to it and putting much content on there. I don't know. I've heard some people, it has done incredibly well. I've not been super great. It should be on my agenda of things to do, but I'm been kind of lame with adding stuff to that one.
Right. And I think that's the biggest challenge, right? If we are creating groups that we're going to manage, staying on top of it and, being active in it so it doesn't fall off people's radar or out of their feed. So yeah, there's definitely value there. Just something else we're going to add to our assistance task list.
He loves us.
She does, except for I sent her 10 emails this weekend of things I needed done. Well, she just finished my listing presentation, so that's good.
You are the new team dickhead.
Yeah. All right. Anything else for executing ideas? I mean, not only are we executing, we're coming up with more ideas and tasks for ourselves. Pre-qualifying listing appointments. Brad, I'll let you take this one over.
Yeah, so this one's we can go a couple different ways here. But when you meet with your buyers, you pre-qualify them, right? So you're like, hey, what's, for a number of different reasons. One, for them, but two, is this a waste of your time? Is there a value in pre-qualifying your listing appointments? I mean, are there listings? And I know one of you, at least in this group, has some listings or a listing that's wasted their time that maybe you shouldn't have taken, or what? Valerie's smiling.
Guilty.
I was wondering. I was like, it's either Janice or Valerie. Which one?
I thought he was talking to me, Valerie.
Actually, I think you both have.
Guilty.
I think we all do. I know I've taken them.
Brad, you got one right now that I tell you we should just drop them.
That's a
douchebag.
Spill the beans, Ben.
That's a
Brad. This guy has asked Brad a million times to list his house. Brad has sent him the listing agreement 1,000,001 times, and he has yet to he'll be like, "Oh, I'm busy," or he'll be like, "Why haven't you sent it to me?" And Brad's like, "It's right here in your inbox." Yeah, a waste of our time. I mean,
Yeah.
waste of Brad's time. I'm the bear that keeps poking Brad and asking him why it's not done yet.
Yeah. Right. So the status is now. Basically is GOK. God only knows. That's the new status. So, but anyway, yeah. So anyway, I'd love some input on that. Like, what do you guys do now? Do you truly qualify your listing appointments? And maybe think on those ones that have wasted your time, or ones worse is, I'm at least with this one, I haven't listed it. So how much, like, there's things I refusing to do. Not ordering photography, not gonna prep a marketing budget. There's just certain things I'm not gonna do. But have you ever had ones that you got into, you actually listed it, and you're like, hey, boy, I wish I wouldn't have taken this on. And if you would have properly qualified the listing, maybe you would have turned it down. And Janice, you're shaking your head. I mean, can you think of what's, you don't have to give this a specific example, but thinking on that, what would you have done differently, or what are important things to ask when qualifying a listing appointment? I'll before you go, and I'll just tell you right now, the two that have been the worst for me that I've actually listed, spent money, time on, was we did not agree on the starting listing price. Client said they would come down after a certain period of time, but because I did not have it preset in the contract, then they pushed back on me and didn't want to do it. So since then, if I get the feeling that they're not really going to agree, I put in the listing agreement set dates and price reductions right away. So go ahead, Janice.
Actually, mine's finally under contract. Thank you, Lord. Please keep it moving forward. And I have to take the blame on it, because I should have, when they chose their price and where they wanted to position it, I should have fought them harder on it. Because it was higher than I told them to list it for. And it was when the market was shifting, and some things were going for higher than I thought they should go for, and some things were going lower. And this was one that I should have stuck to my guns more on. So they let it sit on the market at the higher price for too long. And I wish I would have been a little more specific on that and spent more time discussing that with them. And before we actually put it on the market at the high price. So that was I take the blame for that one. But that was where they wanted to be, and they paid the price for it.
So I feel like I need to share this objection handling podcast with all of you guys, because it was so eye-opening for me. I've used so many of the little tidbits out of that one. I listened to it like 4 times. It was fabulous. So I feel like it had a lot of objection handlers as far as listing and that list price and overpricing and what it does. And so I'll try to make sure that I share that with you, Vince. And I don't know, we can pass it along, because it's,
Yeah, I could pass it, or you could, if you have it available, Sarah, you could throw it in the chat and we can copy and paste the link.
yeah, let me see if I can find it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Janice, a quick question before we go into a little more of the qualifying listing appointments, because I'm curious on this. How long did it sit on market?
I listed it in November, and it went under contract
Yesterday.
April. No. About 2 to 3 weeks ago.
Okay, close enough. Did you do a
Yeah.
price reduction?
Yes, we did several.
Oh,
We did several. So they listed it at $390. I suggested they listed it at I said $350 to $365. I really wanted them to go at $350. They listed it at $390. Yeah, big difference, huh?
Yeah, that's big.
We ended up reducing it to 3.7. I got them to reduce it to 370, which was still higher than I originally wanted to list it for. And then they went to 330, and then I got them to go to 300 because it was getting into mowing season. I'm like, listen, you guys are gonna have to start taking care of this. You need to get the price down because we aren't getting the activity. So we put it at 3. We ended up getting multiple offers and going 25,000 over. So 3 to 330 was kind of where I thought it should be, but that's kind of why I wanted to go in at 350. But that was how the cards fell. But we did end up getting over asking.
Which was what again? I'm sorry.
325.
So 325.
We were listed.
Okay.
We were listed at 300, and it went up to 325.
That's
So-
a huge price reduction from their expectations.
Yes. And I had originally told them, depending on the updates that they did and the things that they were supposed to get done to put it on the market. And since that was when the market was shifting, we started talking about it in June of last year. I listed it in November. So there was a huge time gap of the adjustment there. And I gave them a wide range between 3 and 4, depending on what they did to the property to get it ready. And when they put it on with the shifting market, it was going to be somewhere in there. And of course, they wanted to go to the high end, and they didn't do half of the stuff that they were supposed to do. So that's where we ended up.
Yeah, that hurts
Can
a
I
little
ask
bit. Okay.
Let me ask another question. So let's talk about how we learned from certain listings that maybe we would have qualified better that had nothing to do with price. Who's got anything there and what you learned and how you would do something different and maybe not taking a listing or just done a little bit better qualification that had nothing to do with price? Because a lot of it could have to do with price, right? We get that all the time.
I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, I think finding out their motivation is a big point of doing the pre-qual, because depending on what that is going to affect where they should be. And if they're stuck on price or certain timeframes, you need to know that to help direct them where they need to price it and what terms and conditions might be more beneficial for them if it's not just price.
Okay. What else? By the way, the motivation. By the way, the motivation is really good. And Vince, we actually ended up talking about that on our podcast this morning. Just totally on how motivation plays a huge role in understanding both from a buyer client and a listing, actually. Valerie, what were you going to say?
Well, I was gonna just say it kind of had to do with what Janice mentioned earlier with like her sellers not doing half the things that they said they were going to do, but like the willingness to prepare the property and really be ready to get it on the market and be willing to do the things that it takes to get the property looking its best. You know, it takes 2 to tango, and they have to be really willing to do a deep clean and put some crap away and make it look presentable. And then they've also got to be willing to let people in to see the property. I mean, I went on a listing appointment with my mentee yesterday, and they wanted to have 24 to 48 hours notice for showings. And I was like, that's not going to work. You've got to be able to let people in to see your house. You know, if you want to sell your property, there's got to be some flexibility, and you've got to be willing to do the work that it takes to get there.
So I just took a listing. These people had listed it previously with someone else, and I kind of just went in there and like shot a couple not very good photos. they were kind of not the best housekeepers, not the tidiest. And I think one sister had this really inflated idea of what it was worth. So the listing had expired twice. And then they actually had someone come and independently appraise it. So when I went to interview for the listing again, I didn't have to fight for the price point. But one of the things that I kind of said, I was like, okay, so we have some things that we can do to help you sell this house. Some people are not motivated to do the work. I was like, so do you want me to just tell you what I think we can get as it is? Or do you want me to talk to you like you're my sister and I'm trying to get you like top dollar for what you've got here? And I kind of have found that I like to ask people whether they want to hear that, because some people truly do not.
Mhm.
They want to put their house on the market and they want to sell it. And if you give them a big, huge, long punch list to do, like they just glaze over. And these people actually did want the sister talk. And so I'm like, okay, here's what we need to do. And I actually got them to repaint their dining room and their kitchen because they looked ugly and dingy and gross, which is minimal, like that's minimal work. We bought some really cute textured wallpaper and like lined the interior of these open cabinets. It made this kitchen go from like dingy where you didn't want to touch stuff to like, oh, this is really cute. It was huge. Like it made a huge difference. They got rid of like 50% of the furniture and stuff in the house. She swap shopped a whole bunch of things, and actually they did a good job. And then I probably spent almost 6 hours there cleaning because I was like, no, it's still like, no, we cannot put it on. And one of the things I was like, you want your house to look like it's a little Airbnb. Like you would check into there like it was a hotel and nothing can gross you out. And there was still some, like I cleaned all the windows because they were grody looking, and scrub. They had this little island thing and scrubbed that because it was like there was scunge and like the cracks and it was not good. But we put it back on the market and it's an escrow and I have a backup offer on it now. So it like they
Nice.
took that advice and actually did it, but some people don't want to do that. They want to just sell it.
Right. What do you think they spent in materials and things like that to kind of make the house a little more show ready?
$300 to $400.
Yeah.
And that's what I told them. Paint is the biggest bang for your buck you will ever get. Like fresh paint, like made a huge difference.
Brian Buffini
what was
says
the
it's
return?
50.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Val, go ahead. Finish, Valerie.
I'd say Brian Buffini says it's $50 in the can and $1,000 on the wall.
Yeah. I love it.
So what do you think they got him in return value? Like how much more do you think you sold it for if they would have just left it as is?
I think at least $10,000.
Okay. That's I know it comes down to everything always seems to come down to price, right? Like, okay, what's their alternative motives? Or what's the alternative stuff or issues you've had, right? Okay, getting the house ready. Okay, what's the benefit of getting the house ready? And you're right. I would say cleaning and organizing and painting are the three biggest bangs for your buck.
Yes.
And if you could just get your client to understand that, and also make sure to come in with resources. Like, so did they paint that themselves? Sarah?
Yes, they did.
Okay. I mean, it would have cost them a little bit more for somebody to paint it for them, right?
It definitely.
Could have hired it, but if $10,000 return, they still would be positive. So if you got those issues, I think it's great to give all those examples. And then the cleaning, it's always a tough one because it's like, I've had clients say, oh, well, I'll just do it myself. And it's like, well, are you cleaning it now? Yeah, I'm doing it now.
I always have a move-in, move-out cleaner that I always recommend to people. I say, I've got this lady who can come in and just take that chore right off your hands just for, a couple, $200 to $300 and just get it done. You don't have to worry about it.
That's a total,
That's
that conversation. Yeah. Well, that conversation though, just to try not to offend someone and say, well, you're cleaning it now yourself and it sucks, that's probably not a good thing to say. That's a version of Valerie uses. It's this much money. Let's just take it off your hands. You're going to have enough to worry about. You got to, you've got to look for a new place. You got to be moving. You got to package. You got lenders. You got all this stuff you got to arrange. Let's just take this one thing. This one thing, it's worth the money to spend. You don't want to just talk them into spending the money. Otherwise, you're just telling them no because you're doing it now and it's not very good. So, and I think we all have those. If you don't, find your cleaners in the area. That we have some that their focus is. I like the ones that are like their bread and butter businesses being Airbnbs or just regular cleaning crews, but they also have a different level that's getting ready to move in and move out, aka getting ready to list or move in, right? So find those because we have a few. One of ours is a little ridiculous overpriced, so I need to find another one. But that's another tough conversation. So okay, so condition, price. What else, if anything, that you could think of in regards to pre-qualified on the listing side that you got to be aware of?
The one thing I'm going to throw out there is, who's on who's the title people who's on the property? Are you dealing with just the daughter? Are you dealing with 4 other siblings? Is it an estate? Or, I think that's key because that could really screw up or slow down the process for sure.
I usually pull up them on anything before I list it for exactly that reason.
Yeah. I said this, I don't think it was in this format. I know in another format, I said that I didn't used to do search and holds. Now I literally do them on every listing. And it checks numbers of things. All right, who are all the sellers I'm actually dealing with? If I've been talking to just one person, all of a sudden there's 2, whether it's a spouse, a relative, or whatever, is that stuff on record? Don't ever take the client's word for it too. Like I dealt with a probate not too long ago, and they thought all the paperwork is taken care of. We get listed. We're months into the listing, finally get an offer, and then the seller side ends up delaying the closing by almost 30 days because the probate wasn't what they told me it was. Quite frankly, shame on me. I should have just done it. If I had done the search and hold and done the due diligence on my end, I could have, and it wasn't, they weren't being malicious about it. They didn't know. So it's like, don't assume, go ahead and you should be taking the steps on the realtor side to confirm that you are working with all the parties that have the rights. On a motivational side of it, if you find out I hate this, when you're dealing with multiple siblings, I don't care if it's 2, if it's 3, if it's 4, if it's 6, there's always one that's the greedy bastard. And I'm sorry, I could call them a nicer term, but that's what they are. Their life's in a situation where they want every freaking nickel possible. And they're going to be a pain in the ass throughout the initial offer period. They're going to be a pain in the ass through inspections of what they have to give up. They're going to want, and by the way, they're going to help 0. They just want the most money. You have to, and cool thing is you can usually ask the other sibling or siblings that aren't that way who that person is. You just ask them, is there any one of the siblings you think could slow up this process in any way? That's all you have to phrase it, and they'll be like, oh yeah, Sue, she's a pain in the ass. She just wants money. She won't do shit, but she's gonna be a pain in the ass. All right, who's gonna manage Sue is your next question. Do I need to try and do it, or are you guys? I actually prefer I do it because then you can go through with them. It's like qualified, and it's like qualifying all over again, but you're qualifying a specific person. All right, this is my difficult one. I need to meet with Sue, or at least talk to her on the phone if she's, and that one's always freaking out of state too. That's always a fun one. So, all right, I need to talk to Sue, and I feel bad for all the Sues because it's a fictional person, but my mom's name's Karen, so I feel bad using Karen.
My mom's name's Sue.
Okay, we're gonna rule out Karens and we're gonna rule out Sues for reference in the future. We have Karens, we have Mom Karens and Mom Sues. Any other names we should forego? Okay, well, let us know. We'll add to the list later. No Karens, no Sues. Vince, make sure we have that in the notes.
Just so everybody knows, Sarah did add the Spotify to the chat, so make sure you copy and paste it to something so you don't lose it.
Yeah, that's a great podcast. I listened to, I'm pretty sure that's the one I listened to like 4 times. It was fabulous, in my opinion.
Nice.
This means I have to listen to something else besides my golf podcast. This is weird.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I guess.
So real quick, just to add to that, trust. I just had this happen to me, and I don't know if I'd mentioned it to you, Brad, but I did a CMA for a trust. The mother passed. There was 8 siblings. 2 of them were wanting to buy it. They asked me to do a CMA. So I did a CMA. 2 want to buy it. 6 of them want to sell it. And I sent it to the guy. His last name was the name of the trust. You know, there's nothing recorded. It doesn't say who specifically. I guess if I would have done it and read the actual deed, I would have known better. But I got an email from an attorney who was the brother, one of the brothers that wanted to buy it, that he was the sole trustee on the trust and that I should not have name, like reprimanding me. Which I met him. We got along great. It was fine. It worked out, but it could have been different. So I should have asked who was in charge of the trust before I had done that, to alleviate any issues and clarified. So you might want to just keep that in mind if you have a trust calling you about something like that.
Well, I just had one that was in a trust, and I read the trust, and it said the one sister was the sole trustee and the other 2 were beneficiaries. However, that they were all had their ants in their pants to get it back on the market, and this is the same one. So I got it all listed. You know, I had a copy of the trust. I had ordered the prelim, but I didn't have it yet, and it turns out that they had dissolved the trust, and they were now all equal partners. So I had to go back through and add the other 2. It was fine. Like there was no issue, but it was another one of those things. Like I had all the disclosures done with only the one person's signature on them, and I needed everybody's. So it was just a little extra work.
This is weird. I'm looking. I never log into Spotify on my phone or on my computer, so I just try to find it on my phone. It's like a pain in the butts, but I'll figure it out. Looks like a good podcast. I was looking over it though, Sarah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. I love my Spotify app. I listen to stuff on there all the time.
Oh, awesome. All right. Anything else on this topic? Otherwise, we got a little time to probably hit email marketing, I would imagine. Right, Vince?
Yeah, we got it. 10 minutes. Let's go.
So, email marketing, I think there's about 100 ways to do it. A bunch of different lead sources you could do it with, pretty much all of them. Who thinks they use effective forms of email marketing? And what do you do? Okay, so Sarah's out.
What kind of marketing?
Just kidding. Email marketing.
Oh, email marketing.
I suck at it, but I get a lot of email marketing from other agents in our area, and I need to do a better job with it.
See, I feel like I hate getting email marketing, so I don't do it.
All the
That's a good
emails I
point.
get from other agents, like promoting properties, end up in my spam. And so I don't pay for any, like I don't do any Zip My Flyer or anything like that because I know that they just go right to spam.
Yeah, and probably for most people it does, right? And not mine. My spam set up very, very loosely, unfortunately. But I still feel like so it's kind of like farming an area. My wife makes fun of me because I send out all these postcards of my daughters, right, to this small farm. She makes fun of me every time I start some type of new marketing thing. And I feel like I guess depends on the cost, right? What your return and value is for doing that email marketing and how much time it takes you if you're doing it or if you're having someone else do it. But I think, you know, and then are we talking about, Brad, are we talking about emailing to clients, email marketing to clients or to other agents to get your listing noticed? Like what type of email marketing are we gearing towards?
Well, it depends. I mean, I think you have to have a strategy for both, or is it all inclusive? You know, so I think there's different strategies. There's to agents could be to get more publicity for your listings, or it could also be if you're trying to grow your team, recruit agents, right?
Right.
It could also be email marketing to get clients. So I think probably those are the main three, but I think it was Valerie that said it, or whoever just said it. That's always my nervousness with email marketing is by marketing those three different things, you can hit also a lot of the same people. And it's like, how many emails is too much a month that you're going to get that horrific unsubscribe, right? So it's like, you have to be careful with what you do. That's like, we do Vince sends out our newsletter. It was every week. He actually just decided to go every 2 weeks. So I thought it wasn't a bad idea, because I think if somebody's getting one email a week, and this thing was hitting agents, this thing was hitting past clients, it's hitting potential clients, it was hitting Sphere, some of our vendors, stuff like that. I think then we put a weekly newsletter on top of maybe 2 or 3 other emails a month, potentially all this same crap. I think that tends to drive the unsubscribes. I think it's a sample that was like, I remember early in my career, and I've been cautious about it ever since. I didn't realize it, and I know other people are good at, like, on my personal page, only thing I was posting was real estate stuff on my personal page. And I had some friends that, like, they literally stopped following. They told me, they're like, hey, stop following you. I don't really want to see your real estate shit all the time. So then it's like I had to be conscious of, like, all right, I can throw some of that stuff in there every once in a while, or I need to post more personal stuff. That way, if I throw real estate stuff in, it's shaded by. I'm not a big personal poster, so therefore I really had to just say, all right, I went to the model where about one in every 4 real estate posts I would share personally to my personal page, because I'm just not a big personal sharing or posting. I've never been that way. I'm probably not going to change my ways too much. I've done a little bit more, but I'm probably not going to come full spectrum. So I don't know, just that fine balance with email marketing. So what's the secret sauce is my question, if you had the secret sauce. And what's too much? I don't know.
Go ahead, Sarah. No, you go.
I found one of the things that I thought was really interesting with the last listing that I posted. It had a little rental unit. And so to bring something of value to my sharing that post, I made a note of, like, did you know that if you buy a property that has a history of rental income, you can use that money to help qualify for your loan. And I probably had 5 people reach out to me just because of that. They were like, tell me more about that, what kind of properties. And so I think if you are going to share a post, like, bring out the interesting thing about that property that the average person wouldn't notice just from your, oh, look at this, house. Anything that you would glance through that listing and not really notice that is of huge value, I think is really important to bring out, because that's what your job is to find that value for people that they themselves would overlook.
It's a good point. I think you can take that, across all types of email marketing. There's the message of the email, but is there a message, or is there something that's interesting beyond that, right? I think that's kind of something to think about. Like, I'll do a quick screen share while you're talking, Vince.
Okay, I'll add. Yes, I agree with you 100%, Sarah. And I'll give you a couple examples. And it's funny that you talked about that rental income thing, because I have a buyer who we're talking about rental income, and I found I think, a really good property for him. He can live in the top half, continue to rent out the bottom half that's had a tenant in it since 2018. But so in our newsletter next week, we talk about house hacking. I use that specific property as an example to add value. I also, and I send a email once a month to everybody in my sphere, basically. And all it does is it has some type of value add to it. So in January, if I remember correctly, it was a spreadsheet on creating a budget, or there's a monthly budget and annual budget spreadsheet. And I don't remember which each month was, but every month I added some type of value. May it be, hey, it's the springtime, here's a spring checklist for your house or where you live on things you should be doing. So it wasn't necessarily me saying, hey, check out this new house. It's me saying, hey, here's some value of something you may not know or you need today for whatever reason. So I think adding, when you're doing any type of email marketing, adding value with your signature or, you know, your website attached to the bottom adds value. So, but it's like, just like we do for sale by owner marketing. We do for sale by owner marketing, and it's all we're doing is we're adding value. We're giving them our FSBO website where they can track their listing. And then we're giving them our for sale by owner guide so that we're adding value to them. Ideally, they're going to be like, oh, this guy added value, let's go with him. And then we follow up with those people. So,
yeah, that was one of the things when Vince was doing, we started doing when Vince, like, geez, this is over a year ago, and he started doing this newsletter. My only input was like, hey, we got to put other things in there just besides real estate stuff. Let's bring in community, let's have value, knowledge, tips, all that stuff. So, and then we struggled with this. We tried to come up with, use our Eagle and have like that be kind of like the lead in. So we came up with economics of real estate. So there's usually some sort of financial input or guide. And then amazing news. It could be mortgage related. We've had non-mortgage, non-real estate stuff under amazing news, I believe, haven't we, Vince?
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
Gratifying. This is usually like, this could be life tips. You got a couple life tips, one organization, use of videos. A lot of these resources people can use outside of real estate too. So other professionals might like this stuff, and then learn. So we of course market our, podcasts. This ends up being a lot of stuff as far as, yes, real estate, but then also, learn more. That's another. Cookie Corner is a local business, and that we're highlighting. So we're also helping other businesses out. And then the last one, events. So this is where Vince or our assistant, whoever creates this now, taps more into community stuff, like what's like go on the chamber websites, what's going on with different events. So, putting those links there. So it's easy, like, oh, what's going on in the area? Well, it's this. And of course, we've got our easy, quick links to different parts of our website and landing pages or whatever. And then, of course, you're always connect. So
and I'll touch on one thing, and then we got to jump off because Brad and I got a 2:00 training. But so through this, the one thing that's the highest click rate through, we use MailChimp, and the one item or the one area that gets the most clicks is our local events. And that's why I put it at the bottom, because it forces them to scroll through everything before they get to our local events. But that has the highest, when it comes to the open rate, that's where they go and that's what they click on. And MailChimp shares that data on who clicked on it, how many times they might have clicked on it. So it's pretty cool. That's why, for the little bit we pay for MailChimp every month, it's beneficial. So,
Cool.
Okay, guys, hate to cut it short. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See you next week, or
Bye-bye.
next week for some of you. Bye.